So fret sprout can be an issue. Fret sprout is when your frets start to stick out of the edge of the fretboard, and sometimes they're referred to as cheese grater frets. What it basically means is that if you run your fingers up and down here, you'll feel it. It's not smooth. It will feel like you're running into metal. And one of the reasons that happens is because of changes in humidity. Now, when you set up your guitar, if you live in a very dry climate, and you start to file the frets and you crown them and polish them, and the guitar stays in an environment that has the same humidity, then the guitar will be fine. But once you go and change humidity, somewhere here in New York, for example, different seasons will see different levels of humidity. In the winter, we'll have very low humidity, and the summer will have very high humidity. So right now in January, it's very dry in New York. And what happens is this guitar sitting in this case, because it dries up, the wood kind of shrinks a little bit and the frets will pop out. And one of the first things really that people will do to address that is, to file down the frets. And that's not what I propose to you should be your first course of action. Now, there is a way to get the guitar, back to how it was before the frets popped out, and that's to control the humidity. And once you get that under control, you need to set up your guitar for those particular conditions that you have, the weather conditions, and then it will stay that way. One way to do this is like a room humidifier. Another way to do it is a case humidifier, and what I propose to you is to do it very cheap. So I have this American Standard Stratocaster, and the frets are starting to pop out. So instead of me taking the neck off and leveling it and then crowning the frets, what I would do is restore some of the moisture to the humidity. Restore some of the moisture to the guitar, and that way the wood will swell up a little bit, and the frets will just they'll go back into the guitar and back into the fretboard accordingly. One way to do this, and a way to do it very cheap, and to fix that problem very cheap, is a hygrometer right here, which reads the humidity. So you keep this in your case, and that will tell you the humidity in your case. As soon as you open up your case, it takes a minute to adjust, so you'll know what the temperature or what the humidity reading was in the case of your guitar. And the way that we restore moisture to the inside of the guitar case, and do that rather affordably without buying any type of expensive guitar case humidifier, is to use a soap sponge or a soap dish tray, I think they're called, and they have holes on the top, most of them. And inside, we just cut up a kitchen sponge to fit. We soak it in water and we wring it out completely damp, and if you could see, not a drop will come out if I squeeze it. And we leave that here in the case, and what that does is the moisture will escape from the sponge and go back into the guitar. It takes a few weeks like this. It could take a month or so, and you have to constantly, every couple of days, check and make sure that your sponge is still slightly damp. If the sponge becomes dry, you need to, of course, dampen it again. And you use this hygrometer, which you can find on eBay or Reverb or anywhere else for a few bucks. You use that to check the humidity, whether it's in your room or in the guitar case or anywhere like that. So when you buy a used guitar or something like that, and the frets are sticking out, it's not necessarily a factory issue. The issue is that a guitar is made out of wood, and wood is subject to changes in temperature, and the changes in temperature and the changes in weather conditions are going to affect the way your guitar plays. And your guitar, whenever you set it up, you're setting it up according to the conditions that that are present at that time. So if the conditions change, the guitar will change. So it's not necessarily, low humidity or high humidity. What's the problem is changes in humidity, frequent changes in humidity for that will cause the frets to come and pop out. But before you start getting the files out, you need to try this, because this is a very, very useful method that's worked very well for a lot of people to restore their restore their frets back to where they were before the guitar was in such a dry climate. And what you really need to take from this is that it is the changes in humidity that are going to affect your guitar. You need to do your best, especially with a guitar that's expensive like this. You need to do your best to control the environment that the guitar is in, because only by doing that will you keep your guitar to perform optimally. Otherwise, issues like this will arise, and issues like this always do arise. That's why we go to the lengths that we do to set up our guitars and to work on our guitars, because it's not just the playing of the instrument that makes the instrument last long and stay in tune and have low action. It's the way that we actually work on the guitar and set it up. And so if you're experiencing fret sprout, you get a room humidifier if you need to, and put your guitar in that room. Make sure you keep it between 45 and 55%, or do the same thing just with a case with something like this. And I've had this open for a few minutes, so it's dropping down to 36, but it was in the 40s before. And if you keep it like that for a week, that fret sprout will probably be good. So that's something to think about.